How many hours do you work every week? 30? 50? Of course, an 8-hour day, 5 days a week, is widely considered to be a full-time schedule, and that puts you just between those two figures at 40 hours a week. In the 19th century, people made huge sacrifices to win the weekend and the 8-hour day. They made huge sacrifices to work those 40 hours a week. The phrase, of course, was 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest. That's what Robert Owen said anyway, of course, the progressive industrialist. Although, of course, now we consider 40 hours pretty full on. It's a long way from the 14-hour days that were commonplace in Victorian Britain. 14-hour days, 6 days a week. Thankfully, that's all in the past. Or maybe not, because a leaked memo by Google co-founder Sergey Brin includes the claim that the, quote, sweet spot for the work week is 60 hours. The New York Times reports this. On Wednesday, Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, said the company could lead the industry in artificial general intelligence, AGI, when machines match or become smarter than humans, if employees worked harder. Quote, I recommend being in the office at least every weekday, he wrote in a memo posted internally on Wednesday evening that was viewed by the New York Times. He added that, quote, 60 hours a week is the sweet spot of productivity in the message to employees who work on Gemini, Google's lineup of AI models and apps. Not that you need to come into the office 5 days a week. I mean, that's quite onerous, isn't it, post-COVID? At least every weekday you come in. You imagine the phone call when you get the job offer. It's kind of muffled. Yep, so when do I need to come in? It's hybrid, right? Every weekday. 3 days a week? And every weekday I'm working. Sure, do I need to come in every weekday? I can't imagine I do. No, you do. At least. Maybe come in on a Saturday too. The note also underscores Brin's belief that artificial general intelligence could be developed by the company. Competition has accelerated immensely, and the final race to AGI is afoot, he wrote. I think we have all the ingredients to win this race, but we're going to have to turbocharge our efforts. He highlighted the need for Google's employees to use more of its AI for coding, saying the AI is improving itself would lead to AGI. Kind of interesting, right? The recursive nature of it all. He also called on employees working on Gemini to be, quote, the most efficient coders and AI scientists in the world by using our own AI. Finally, there's this. A number of folks work less than 60 hours, and a small number put in the bare minimum to get by, he wrote. This last group is not only unproductive, but also can be highly demoralizing to everyone else. Presumably, these people are just working their contracted hours. How dare you not go far beyond what you're actually meant to be doing? How dare you? Isn't it ironic that the company that could lead to human beings becoming obsolete by creating an AGI is saying that the ideal work week is 60 hours? And now some people have been saying recently, I'm not left-wing enough on this show. How dare you as well? So let me quote Karl Marx from the Grundrisse. That translates as the notebooks in German, I think. Here's what he writes. Capital employs machinery, rather, only to the extent that it enables the worker to work a larger part of his time for capital, to relate to a larger part of his time as time which does not belong to him, to work longer for another. Through this process, the amount of labour necessary for the production of a given object is indeed reduced to a minimum, but only in order to realise a maximum of labour in the maximum number of such objects. He also puts it rather succinctly elsewhere in the Grundrisse, when he writes, the most developed machinery thus forces the worker to work longer than the savage does, or than he himself did with the simplest, crudest tools. Correct. Working on artificial general intelligence, you have to work 60 hours a week. In a world of high productivity with mass automation and even AGI, people will still work really long hours. 60 hours if you work for Sergey Brin. We've cured sickle cell, perhaps. We've electric vehicles with 1,000-kilometer range, in China anyway. But make sure you work over the weekend. Come on. Kieran, should anyone be working 60 hours a week?
I mean, if someone wants to pay me the Google guy's salary, I'll work 60 hours a week for them. Short of that, no. This is just utter nonsense. The whole thing is utter nonsense. I think I've seen further in the comments that the spectre of productivity is clearly front and center in what he's saying. And it's nonsense for many reasons. One of them being, I think the main one being, that it reinforces the fallacy that the cause of low productivity in the economy is lazy workers, a lazy workforce, a workforce that's too comfortable sitting at home and not putting in the hours and maximizing profits for their betters, and so on and so on. It's complete bilge. The main causes of low productivity, for anybody who's interested in the economy, are low demand for goods and services caused by austerity. That's one of the major causes. Low investment in skills and upskilling as well, another major cause. Low investment in the economy across the board, but particularly in research and development, R&D, on which productivity growth absolutely and inherently relies. And also gross inequality and job and housing insecurity are massively negative for productivity growth. Because, well, partly because, or in consequence of, the fact that economists and many CEOs, probably all CEOs, don't view really the numbers as people. They view them as numbers. Very often in the economist's case, I would argue probably always in CEO's case. And actually, people are obviously people. And there are things that are beyond the economy that are very important to people's stability, ability to focus on their work, etc., etc., etc. So it's just utter nonsense. Do you know, the audience can't, nobody can answer me, but I'm going to say it anyway as a rhetorical question. Do you know which country in Europe, actually, I think at the moment the OECD is saying in the world, has the highest productivity per worker? Nobody can answer. Ireland.
Norway.
It's Ireland, apparently.
Really?
I might be wrong, but OECD in 2024 said it was Ireland. In any case, Ireland, fantastic country, in many ways, thriving economy. But do people work 60 hours a week on average in Ireland? I would wager they don't. It's because of other structural inputs into the economy, sort of ones I've alluded to. And I have to say, if you wanted the perfect simpleton's explanation as to why productivity is low in the economy, it would be this.
What, people watching YouTube or the
No, I meant it would be this explanation.
Too many people watching YouTube videos.
I should have been clearer. It probably sounded like I was saying this show. No, it would be,
if only,
the Google guy's explanation for low productivity, the gap between where we are and AI, etc.
Isn't it interesting as well? Talking about productivity, YouTube, obviously owned by the parent company of Google, Alphabet. It is an incredible website. I think it's been valued independently about $500 billion. It's built on ads. It's built on crappy ads for products that people don't really want. If we're trying to build a high productivity economy which centers human flourishing, is that really wise? Ben Bratton put it so well. Humans, this primate, build a global exoskeleton, a communicative exoskeleton around the planet for us all to talk to each other in real time. And its business model is distraction.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Something to think about. Brilliant. Yeah. It's a really brilliant way of putting it as well, with the exoskeleton. And just briefly to build, extend that, Aaron, you mentioned techno-feudalism earlier. It's a form of digital rents or whatever. That's not productive. And actually, you see that in the real economy as well. So, this then ties into other things in the economy like landlordism and rentier capitalism, rent extraction. And those things are inherently not productive. Those things contribute to low productivity in an economy. I don't see the co-founder of Google focusing on any of that because it's not convenient. What is convenient is break the backs of the workers.
Yeah. Actually, before we go to our final story, I've got a question for our audience. People who are watching in real time, often people talk about urbanism, urban regeneration, urban activists, they're making somewhere nicer, right? That's the point of good urbanism. Urban planners, politicians who are on board with positive urban visions, etc. Urbanism, even some developers. Urbanism. What's the word we've got to create for landlords and people with HMOs who are doing the opposite? They're making an area worse, right? You've got a street with so many terrace houses. It's meant to accommodate 400 people. But now those houses, which were originally built for families of 4 people, maybe 5 people, now have 15 people in them. And the HMO is owned by somebody who lives in a nice detached house 10 miles away, creaming it in, not working. It's the opposite of urbanism. It's making the city landscape worse. It's making public services worse. What do we call that thing? Inverse urbanism, but I want a more catchy term. I've been thinking about this a lot.